Hello everyone, welcome to Radiology Cases tutorial. Today we are going to discuss the intrauterine pregnancy in the first trimester. We will discuss the normal versus abnormal intrauterine pregnancy. First of all, we will discuss the scanning approach during the first trimester. The first trimester sonography is generally performed by the transabdominal and the transvaginal approaches. The transvaginal approach provides the superior resolution as compared to the transabdominal sonography, and it helps in the identification and characterization of the structures that are incompletely characterized or too small to be visualized transabdominally. And this is the transabdominal sonography in the early pregnancy. This is the midline longitudinal transabdominal image of the uterus that shows no evidence of gestational sac, but this is the longitudinal transvaginal sonogram of the uterus in the same patient as in the image given this one, and it shows a small intrauterine gestational sac containing a yolk sac. This is the small circular structure with echogenic rim is a yolk sac, and the transvaginal imaging facilitated a definitive diagnosis of the intrauterine pregnancy that was not possible in the transabdominal approach. Now this is the image of the right adnexa in the patient that shows the normal appearing ovary. This is the right adnexa, and no ectopic pregnancy was visualized in this scan. And this is a transabdominal image of the right upper pelvis in the same patient as in the image given here, and it shows the echogenic adnexal ring that is surrounded by the gestational sac, and it was confirmed an ectopic pregnancy at the surgery. The ectopic pregnancy could not be visualized at the transvaginal ultrasound because it was located in the pelvis highly beyond the field of view of the transvaginal probe, and the superiorly located ectopic pregnancies almost missed at the transvaginal scanning because it has the limited field of view and can be seen only at the transabdominal scan. Now we will discuss the progression of the ultrasound findings during the first trimester. Gestational sac is the first identified structure in the uterus of the early uterine pregnancy, and the small gestational sac is generally visible at approximately 5 weeks gestation. And this is the longitudinal transvaginal image of the uterus that shows the early intrauterine gestational sac. This is the axial transvaginal image of the uterus that shows a yolk sac within the gestational sac. This internal rounded structure with echogenic rim is a yolk sac, and this structure is a gestational sac. Yolk sac is the first normal structure that is identified in the gestational sac. Embryo is not realized until after the yolk sac is at approximately 6 weeks gestation. The embryo is the first identified as a focal thickening along the outer margin of the yolk sac, and this is a transvaginal image of the uterus that shows early embryo as a focal thickening that is along the outer margin of the yolk sac, and the embryo is realized after the yolk sac and should be located adjacent to the yolk sac when first seen. This is a transvaginal image of the uterus at 9 weeks gestation. It shows a yolk sac that is separated from the embryo in the chorionic cavity, and this is the chorionic cavity that is surrounded by the placenta, and this is the amnion, and this yolk sac is present outside the amniotic cavity. Now we will discuss the early intrauterine gestational sac. This is a schematic representation, and this is the corresponding transvaginal ultrasound of the uterus. It shows a small rounded fluid collection that is surrounded by a well-defined thick peripheral rim of echogenic structure that is consistent with early intrauterine gestational sac. And this is a small rounded fluid collection that is surrounded by a well-defined thick peripheral echogenic tissues, and it is consistent with early intrauterine gestational sac. This is the characteristic location of the gestational sac that is immediately adjacent to but disconnect from the uterine cavity. This appearance has been termed as intradecidual sign or intradecidual reaction. Now we will discuss the double decidual sac sign. and the pseudogestational sac in the next. And this is the double residual sac sign. This one is the schematic diagram of the double residual sac sign, and this is the corresponding longitudinal transvaginal ultrasound image, and it depicts the three layers of echogenicity surrounding most of the intrauterine gestational sac, and the layers corresponding to the decidua on both sides of the uterine cavity, with the uterine cavity in between the layers, and the inner echogenic layer termed as decidua capsularis that surrounds directly the gestational sac, and the outer layer termed the residua praetalis and is on the opposite side of the uterine cavity. The uterine cavity is the hypoechoic layer between the echogenic layers, and the three-layer appearance is not seen at the site of implantation. This structure is called decidua basalis. When the intrauterine fluid collection is secondary to an ectopic pregnancy, this is termed as pseudogestational sac. The fluid comprising a pseudogestational sac is located in the uterine cavity, not eccentrically to the uterine cavity that we have seen previously, as in the case with the true gestational sac, and are therefore only surrounded by a single echogenic layer. This is a schematic representation, and this is the corresponding longitudinal transvaginal ultrasound image of the uterus of the patient with an ectopic pregnancy that depicts a single echogenic layer that surrounding the hypoechoic fluid collection in the uterine cavity, and no triple layer was seen here. Now we will discuss some pitfalls in the intrauterine embryonic versus the pseudogestational sac with the clotted blood. This is the case of intrauterine gestational sac, and this is the clotted blood in the pseudogestational sac that is resembling an embryo, and this is the axial transvaginal image of the uterus in a patient with an ectopic pregnancy that shows a fluid collection containing a foci of clotted blood, initially thought to be represented as an embryo, but no cardiac activity was seen here. This is the image of the left pelvis in the same patient, and it shows an ectopic pregnancy medial to the left ovary. This is the left ovary, and this is the free fluid with internal echoes due to the pelvic hemiperitoneum is also identified with this. The viable pregnancy is a gestation that can potentially result in a live infant, and the failed pregnancy term is used to describe a non-viable pregnancy. Ultrasound plays an important role in distinguishing between the viable and the non-viable intrauterine pregnancy. And now this is the image of the embryo in a patient that shows the head and armpits and also the body here, and the CRL, it means the crown rump length measurement consistent with the 9 weeks and the 6 days. Although no cardiac activity was identified on the M mode here, and an intrauterine pregnancy is confirmed because the distinct body parts are visualized, and the findings are consistent with the intrauterine demise as a non-viable pregnancy and can be diagnosed with the no cardiac activity. Now we will discuss some physiological changes in the embryo. Now this is the physiological gut herniation. This is a sagittal image of the embryo that shows a focal rounded solid structure protruding from the anterior form of the abdomen at the expected site of the umbilical cord insertion. This is the head of the fetus, and this is echogenic structure is the nose, and we can see the size of the herniation is significantly smaller than that of the abdomen. This is the axial image at the level of the fetal abdomen that is showing the gut herniation. Here we can see, but the size of the herniation is significantly smaller than that of the abdomen. Now this is the 3D image of the embryo that confirms here that the mid-gut herniation is into the base of the umbilical cord. This is a sagittal transvaginal image of the embryo at 8 weeks gestation, and it shows a small cystic structure in the posterior portion of the head, and this is the normal physiological development of the hindbrain, and this structure is called rhombencephalon that has to develop into the hindbrain, and this structure should not be taken for the abnormality such as an encephaly, choroplexus cyst or dandivocal malformation. Age of the pregnancy is calculated from the first day of onset of the last menstrual period, and the assignment of the gestational age is based on the last menstrual period assumed as a regular 28 days menstrual cycle. The estimated gestational age by the last menstrual period is inaccurate than the 28 days in the women with the cycles of substantially different duration than the 28 days, and in the women with irregular menstrual cycles and when the menstrual dates are uncertain. The measurement of the mean sac diameter is helpful in obtaining a rough estimate of the gestational age before the embryo is violized. Now, this is the mean gestational sac measurement, the longitudinal image of the early intrauterine gestational sac that shows the calipers positions along the inner walls of the gestational sac. And this is the axial image of the early intrauterine gestational sac that shows its calipers in the inner wall of the gestational sac. The gestational sac is measured in the three orthogonal planes to measure the mean sac diameter, and here the measurement is 0.59, 0.26 and 0.31 centimeter, and its mean sac diameter is 0.39 centimeter. The mean sac diameter is not as accurate as the CRL in estimating the gestational age. Once the embryo is seen, the CRL should be used with the mean sac diameter in this assessment. The CRL is measured along the long axis of the embryo from top of the head to the bottom of the body, and this is the measurement of the CRL images of the embryos at the various stages of the first trimester that shows the appropriate scan plane and the caliper replacement for measuring the CRL. Once the head and the body are clearly differentiated, the measurement should be made from the top of the head to the bottom of the body, and embryo should be in the neutral position without significant flexion or extension of the neck. Now this is the image of the fetus, and its measurement was taken from top of the head to the bottom of the body, and this structure is the yolk sac and it should not be taken as head of the fetus. Now this is another sonogram, and here we can see the CRL measurement from the top of the head and bottom of the body, and the CRL measurement is 1.97 centimeter, that is corresponding to 8 weeks and 4 days. And this is another sonogram of the fetus which shows the CRL measurement from top of the head to the bottom of the body, and it measures about 5.23 centimeter, that is corresponding to 11 weeks and the 6 days.